Well, Frank Tietie, lawyer and Arise News analyst, joins me on the set to look at these issues. Glad to have you join me.
Thank you.
On the set. This issue has been on for some time now, with the 36 states submitting reports in agreement, for state police. One would have expected that by now something would have been done.
Oh yes, because it involves constitutional amendment. That would be the sister alteration of the Constitution. And constitutional amendments are not just wishes of the National Assembly, even if the National Assembly has completed its work and the states have also voted, but there needs to be that sort of compilation and of whatever that has been harmonized and sent back to the states to vote, and with all the state houses of assembly concurring, or a minimum of 2/3 concurring before it actually takes off. But what we have come to realize is the inevitability of state police and the unanimous voices of both the National Assembly and the government agreeing now that the time for state police has come, finally. And not because it's going to, serve as the magic wand to our security problems, but however, you can't consider that we are still operating a police a system that was handed over to us by the colonial masters. 60 years later, we haven't done much, changes to it. And to now think that we're facing with this intractable security situation, it's expected that we should consider as a country that security should not be the responsibility of the federal government alone. It should be the responsibility of every elected official of government, and especially governors and then local government council chairmen, in the sense that it's easy to blame the president to say that he's responsible for the insecurity situation in all the 6 geopolitical zones and the various 36 states, when they all have their peculiar security problems. So it's just the right thing to do, to hold the governor responsible, so that the governor doesn't give excuse that I'm just a chief security officer, but I don't have operational command and control of the policemen you see in my state. And that sort of excuse to the fact that he's not the one who's to provide security. But one wonders that what else is governance without security is the first and foremost most important thing. So because it's every other thing, right, in terms of governance or state progress rises and falls on security.
Yeah, you made some very poignant points there. The House is throwing it back to the FG. I'm going to get back to that issue, but because of the points you raised, when the lawmakers say overhaul our nation's security architecture, and so many others have banded this phrase, you always hear it even from security people. What will overhauling our security system translate to? Will that include suggestions in some quarters that amnesty should be granted to bandits and terrorists?
Oh, well, that's a very difficult question. The truth about it is that the use of amnesty as a policy has actually been very successful with regards to the Niger Delta militants, and and that's a peculiar problem of the South-South. That is oil theft and militancy as against what you have in the Southeast, which is about separatist movement, IPOB, and the rest of them. So, but in dealing with the Northeast, in Northeast, we're dealing with insurgents who actually just want to undermine Nigeria's sovereignty. But let's now look at Northwest, where we have foreigners who are now involved in all sort of banditry and then to a large extent kidnapping. The point, therefore, is it's going to be very difficult to apply amnesty because these are foreign, I wouldn't call them mercenaries, are foreign invaders. But there's a whole lot of...
Obasanjo disagrees with you.
They're
northerners.
No. We know for certain, and from interviews and intelligence that have been shared, we know that these elements, even from government narratives, were persons who were either brought in from that other kind of narrative that they were brought in as mercenaries to destabilize the 2015, status quo to favor the opposition party, and then the other, narratives as to the fact that there were other destabilized war zones, whether it was Libya or general migrations or whatever, climate change and all that. We know for certain that a whole lot of those elements are non-Nigerians, however, with a lot of Nigerian collaboration. So if at a time, to consider amnesty in the first place, what should be done is that we must be able to identify those who are behind, this sort of invasion of our country's space, and for what purpose. I understand to a large extent, speaking with security men, that it's for the purpose of simply undermining Nigeria's state and the institutions. Okay, and then let's have it destabilize, civic space so that others can take over. However, it's important that having cut off every supply chain in terms of small arms and light weapons, then the government can now move to say all of those collaborators, and now we're talking about state police, because we'll think that some of those persons too can be useful in building local policing, capacity is important.
Now you've got back to that before I let you go, because I have just a little bit of time. There are still fears of this being misused. Are such fears not real? Do you entertain such fears?
They're highly unfounded. I don't expect that elected officials would be expected to be responsible, as we always fear that governors will misuse state police. Forgetting that we have structure in Nigeria, at the state federal level, we have what we call the Police Service Commission that actually applies discipline to all policemen except the Inspector General of Police. In fact, in terms of promotion and discipline, so nothing stops the structures, as we expect in the bill that the National Assembly is working on, which will soon be sent to the state, that the state should also have police service commissions to ensure that, because it's about the people, so it's about service. And again, you don't stay in government forever. So if you abuse the police today, tomorrow it could be your turn to also face the music. But we should expect high standards of our elected officials, and the people must be directly involved in the policing process. I am very hopeful that state police will be a game changer in ensuring that we have a very secure Nigeria.
Very hopeful that state police will be a game changer. A good line. And of course, the NAS have to play their part in making sure that laws to contain any misuses there. Thank you so much, Frank Tietie, lawyer and Arise News analyst, for being on the program.
My pleasure.